Welcome back to eNCA Moneyline, your money guide. My name is Siki Mgabadeli, coming to you live from the Investing in African Mining Indaba. It's taking place at the Cape Town International Convention Center. This is the 21st Mining Indaba, and it is the largest mining conference that is held around the world. It is also Africa's biggest mining event. In fact, it attracts professionals who come together here to talk about the capitalization and development of mining on the African continent. Of course, it comes at a time when we have low commodity prices, we have companies cutting back on capital expenditure, and of course, conversations around selling off some assets as well. So we asked this question: is there still an investment case for mining companies? Let's take a look. 2014 was not a good year for mining companies. A 5-month-long strike brought the country's platinum mining industry to a halt as workers held out for a living wage. Globally, commodity prices took a knock from gold to iron ore and oil.
It has been a tough year for the mining industry. Very little new activity in terms of new mines, new projects, difficulty in raising funding for new projects. And difficult to sustain existing mines because of low commodity prices, labour unrest. There have been quite a few mines that have gone into business rescue, even liquidation. So it has been a tough time for the industry.
Oil prices were possibly the biggest surprise, falling by half in just a 6-month period.
I think what's changed here is a decades-long innovation in North America has led to an unlock of US shale onshore production. So basically what that means is they're uncovering previously unprofitable assets that they knew were there, and those are now profitable because the technologies of hydraulic fracturing, which is fracking, has advanced. So that's probably a separate issue relative to all the others.
Iron ore prices were also hard hit, falling to their lowest levels ever as China slowed down. Analysts say, though, as an investor, you need to be clear about why you are investing in a particular sector in mining and what assumptions you're making about the future of the metal. Analysts believe that China remains a compelling case for investing in metals.
Obviously, what has changed is that China will continue, because of its size and scale relative to where it was 25 years ago, continue to consume commodities at a far higher rate than it has at any other time in its history. So I think that part will continue to fold out. I mean, now the expectations are for the Chinese motor vehicle market to clock 25 million plus this year, and the US is not even going to get to 17 this year. So that gives you an idea of size and scale. There's going to continue to be rapid urbanization in China, and I think, you know, the policy makers want to change China to a consumption-driven economy rather than an investment-driven economy.
Regulatory issues in South Africa were also in the news after the Mineral Resources and Petroleum Development Amendment Bill was sent back to Parliament by Minister Ngwako Ramatlhodi. Initially, it was because certain aspects of the bill were deemed to be unconstitutional, but analysts say it may have more to do with the sections dealing with the oil and gas industry.
There are certain contentious issues, especially the oil and gas side of things. It is an integral part of the MPRDA, and the whole debate about whether those sections should be excised from the bill is a raging debate at the moment. From my own personal point of view, I think it would be good if they did come out, because the oil industry is a distinct industry from the mining industry.
There have been concerns in the past that South Africa could lose mining investment to other parts of the continent due to legislation, inflexible labour laws and electricity shortages. But investors may just look past that.
I think, again, it depends which territory you're in, because if you think about it from a capital markets point of view, South Africa still has 80% of all capital markets in sub-Saharan Africa. So if you're looking for a place to raise money in order then to broaden your horizons, equally don't discount how important infrastructure is, because it's all very nice to have a fit working mine in the DRC, but how are you going to transport the raw product and what are the associated costs with that?
I think we have a sophisticated legal system. We have a sophisticated legal industry and independence of the courts. We have very good decisions coming out of the Supreme Court of Appeal and the Constitutional Court. I don't think that is really scaring away the investors. I think it's probably more, at the moment, the administration of the law that is problematic in South Africa.
There are still looming questions about whether or not the mining sector can ride out the current low-price environment without major job losses, asset sales and consolidation. And for the investor, it looks set to be quite a long and bumpy ride. Hundreds of activists, miners and environmental lobbyists are holding their own alternative Indaba here in Cape Town. They're calling for greater community participation in the actual annual gathering. As you know, 7,000 government and business leaders gather together here annually for the Mining Indaba. So the alternative Indaba is telling us that radical calls for nationalization of mines is gathering momentum across African countries.
Sidelined by mining bosses at the official Mining Indaba in Cape Town, but they have a strong message for those attending. The world's resources must benefit all its people. Activists and miners say the Mining Indaba excludes those most affected by mining operations. They say it's a platform solely for mining companies and governments to put profit above the interest of communities. Now 300 activists are holding their own alternative Indaba. They say 80% of the world's mineral resources is concentrated in Africa, but local communities see little of the money.
When communities stand up and question decision-making processes, it is understandable, because we are being sidelined by all the decision-making processes in as far as the government is concerned, regarding the development that it has to take place in our communities. And the worst part of it, we are not even given the opportunity to define the kind of development that we want and the growth that we want.
Activists say calls for the nationalization of mining are growing across the continent.
We risk here, as the elite of civil society, as civilocracy, we risk becoming irrelevant. We risk becoming irrelevant because there is an emergent radical critique. This critique may not have the statistics, this critique may not have the data, but what it has is the moral outrage of living with the bane of unsustainable extraction.
Activists say they want commitments from governments and mining companies for improved mining practices that will benefit communities and the environment. Lester Kivet, Cape Town.
Well, Africa remains one of the most exciting continents of all, actually, for any potential new major resource discoveries. And I think that's possibly why many delegates keep coming back to the Mining Indaba. Earlier, I spoke to Jessica Fallon, who is MD of JVO Consulting. She focuses specifically on political and government risk, and I asked her how the Mining Indaba has evolved over the years that she has been attending it.
Cape Town Mining Indaba has evolved over the last 10 years. It's really evolved from almost a purely private sector event into a lot more of an inclusive event, a great deal more stakeholders. We see the rise of the presence of African governments. There's now the annual African Ministers Symposium, which is held before the Indaba begins, a very important opportunity for African governments to come together and discuss commonalities in the sector and to talk about the implementation of the African mining vision. So I think the presence of African governments is a new development. We see the rise of alternate voices, speaking for those that feel that they aren't necessarily always represented in mining, the rise of alternate Indaba, which talks about communities and human rights, the impact of mining on those, and the presence of a lot of the multilaterals, the World Bank, the IFC are here. So I think Mining Indaba continues to get more and more inclusive, more and more stakeholders, which I think is healthy and good for the sector. The more people participating, the better.
What are some of the African mining sector industry issues that might be discussed here? What sort of questions are investors asking?
I think a big theme going into 2015 is the ongoing tension in Africa about what is a fair split of the benefits of mining. In Zambia recently we've seen the trebling, the proposed trebling of the royalty from 6% to 20%, which in a falling copper price context has obviously been quite a shake-up for everyone involved in Zambian mining. That's a sort of situation with some ongoing tension, which we will look to see resolved in 2015. But I think it speaks to the broader theme of how do we fairly split mining so that both host governments and the private sector feel that it is worthwhile to have mining inside their countries. Another big theme is going to be beneficiation. President Robert Mugabe of Zimbabwe has just assumed the chairmanship of the African Union and has made very clear that beneficiation and adding value to minerals is going to be top of his agenda during his term in office. In his speech in Addis Ababa 2 weeks ago, he made it really clear that this was going to be something he was going to drive with a lot of energy and focus. And so we're expecting to see the beneficiation of minerals really top of the agenda in a number of fora going forward.
Okay. Well, on legislation then, South Africa is grappling with its own issues around the MPRDA. Let's just talk about what the main issues are there.
Absolutely. The Mineral and Petroleum Resources Development Act, which in fact began renegotiation in 2013, so we're entering the third year of sort of prolonged dialogue around this piece of legislation. President Zuma sent a letter in January saying he would like to refer the bill back to Parliament. He was concerned that some elements would not pass constitutional muster and that suitable consultation with the National Council of Provinces had not been done. And so the MPRDA is going back to Parliament this year. That raises a lot of interesting questions. Is the text of the Act going to change substantively? Is it possibly going to be split into different legislation for mining and oil and gas? There are a lot of proponents that think that that would be suitable and appropriate and a positive development. How is the Chamber of Mines going to deal with the fact that it took a very strong stance on saying that the MPRDA in its current form was great and that they supported it, and now they see it being bounced back to Parliament? So it's really an issue to watch. We're very interested about what happens with the MPRDA. Minister Ramatlhodi will address the Mining Indaba early tomorrow morning on Tuesday, and we'll definitely be looking to his speech for an indication of what's going to happen with that act.
So when things wrap up around midday on Thursday, what do you hope would have come out of this investing in African Mining Indaba?
Personally, and I see this a lot in my work, I would really like to see a little bit of a movement beyond the general motherhood statements of we all need to work together and we're all in this together for our countries. I think those are true and taken as accepted. It would be nice to see some real concrete public-private partnerships committing to infrastructure, power, community development, to make sure that there's a thriving private sector, but also that governments really feel that mining has a place in their economy. So just that translation from, I think, positive rhetoric into actual delivery would be a great thing to see.
And that was Jessica Fallon, who is MD of JVO Consulting. Now tomorrow, the Mining Indaba will be opened officially and the welcoming address will be made by the Minister of Mineral Resources, Mwako Ramatlhodi. Now delegates are going to be listening keenly to hear if he says anything about the amendments to the Minerals and Petroleum Development Resources Act that Jessica was referring to, and we'll bring you some details on that tomorrow. If you'd like to find out any other developments here, please visit eNCA.com. Until tomorrow night, it's back to you, Dudu.
Thank you very much, Siki. That was eNCA Moneyline's Siki Mgabadeli coming to us live from the Mining Indaba in Cape Town. And of course, more from her again tomorrow. Right after the break, our daily question and answer feature. Do stay with us.